I'm Lindsay and I'm autistic. I was diagnosed in the fall of 2020, so very recently. I also have ADHD, which I was diagnosed when I was 22, 35 now. This video is going to be about parental abuse. I'm sorry, it's shaky. I'm using my cell phone and it's propped up on pillows, and because I'm moving, this is moving as well, so I apologize for that. This is going to be hard to make because of the topic. Recently, I've been learning a lot about narcissistic abuse, specifically when it comes to the parent-child relationship. It's said that a lot of times, if you are the person receiving the abuse, that you don't know it until you're either out of it or, in my case, I've just been educating myself about it. For me, it is my mother. It's evolved over time. Childhood was much more intense and worse for me than it is now. Also, I should say that there is a trigger warning. I will probably be talking about suicide, and if that could trigger you, then please, you might not want to watch this. I have 4 videos so far. This is my 5th video, and although all the content that I have created so far is about autism, I do plan on expanding. I'm just not there yet, and because the autism diagnosis is so new to me, fresh, that's basically what I've been covering so far. Alright, so through my diagnosis process, I learned that autism can be genetic, and when I told everybody in my life that I wanted to know at a personal level, one of those people was my dad, who was not abusive in any way, shape, or form. Actually, through me describing what autism is, he actually asked, is this hereditary or genetic? And I said, does any of this sound familiar to you? And he started talking to me about his own childhood and different things that he experienced, and he is 80 years old. I had an older dad. He said, you mean I've been living my whole life like this and didn't know? And yeah, probably. He was born in 1940. My dad was my best friend as a kid, probably because he could relate to me so well without realizing what that was. My parents divorced when I was in middle school, but they had split when I was around the age of 9 or 10. So he left the house and I was just with my mom, who is the abuser in this case. It's not something I can talk about with her because at this point in my life, a lot of things I see online are like, if you know, just drop them. Don't talk to them anymore. And it's not that black or white for me. I have a toddler. My mother moved out of state to be here, not from me asking her to, she just did. And now that I have a toddler, the extra help has been really much needed for me. So it's this balancing act of needing help but also trying to set boundaries, which has been extremely difficult. I'm a people pleaser, and I guess because of the masking and the abuse that I endured, it's made it really hard for me to set boundaries. I'll start as a child. From what I've learned about narcissism is that there can be a few types of narcissists out there. My mother is an extreme extrovert. She will walk into a room and you'll know that she's there. She talks to everybody and anyone. Her family, our other extended family members, friends, all love her. So it's the kind where if I were to say anything to anybody, except for the extremely small percentage of people who are in my life who know about this, I'm talking like 2 to 3 people tops, they would probably think a terrible daughter and making it up if you know, I were to say anything negative about her to anybody. The abuse was mostly closeted and never done in front of my dad. And when it was, you know, my mom is a bully to him as well. So I don't think as a child, I always remember when they would fight, she would bully him. There's a whole other spectrum to that because my parents divorced, and obviously my dad has issues too that he didn't know about, so there's other things. But anyway, I first remember being scared of my mother starting around age 4. A lot of times she would tell me that I was stupid, which isn't true. She would shame me. I was one of those kids who wet the bed beyond the age that is deemed appropriate, I guess, and so I was always shamed. My mom would go on escapades of telling me how much my dad was an idiot or other terrible names, and then would tell me, "You're just like your father," so in a negative way. The hitting started when I was about 7, from what I remember. I have a vivid memory of being at an art show at a college. I was 7 and I was having extreme sensory overload. So I was cranky, crying, and I didn't like it. There was too much noise, too many people. I needed time away, and because my mom can't understand that, because she is an extrovert and doesn't have any of that, she was furious. The next memory I have of that is us being home. She slapped me across the face and grabbed me by my face and shoved it into the mirror and said, "Why can't you just be happy? Why do you have to cry all the time? Why do you always have to do this?" And there started the her being angry anytime I showed any kind of negative emotion. I was slapped a lot. One time it was down the stairs, so she hit me while we were on the stairs and I fell down. She would throw me on the floor. She would always be extremely quick to get incredibly angry at me and start the yelling or slapping. If she slapped me, it was usually just one hard strike on the face. It wasn't like constant beating. But here I am trying to rationalize it already. Like, no, that's still abuse. It took me a long time to figure that out. In middle school, which was one of the hardest times in my life, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people, especially if you're autistic. I am saying autistic. Sometimes it just comes out pronounced like as if I'm saying artistic, but I'm saying autistic. I was extremely depressed. That's when my hardcore depression started, especially because my dad had, left the house for a while before that. My mother was obsessed with grades in school, and public school style learning was not good for me. The first age I remember pretending to be home and going and pretending to be sick so that I could go home was in kindergarten, and it continuously went on from there. I was bullied starting at age 5 all the way up through about age 14, and then occasionally a few times here or there, especially through microaggressions as I got older, even in my 20s. In middle school, though, I had no friends. I would wear the same thing every single day. I was always freezing in school. And so I didn't have any clothes to choose from. I had one pair of jeans and this pullover hoodie to keep me warm. And it was like the only thing I didn't have that was like a scratchy sweater, which my mom always bought for me, even though I hated them. I would change my t-shirt. She would get mad that I was wearing the same thing every day and would talk about how disgusting I was, even though she was not buying me clothes. She got upset over any little things, anything. I was constantly living in fear over her, constantly thinking about committing suicide, ending my life. I was miserable in school, and then after a full day of masking and hating life, I would come home to my mother, who would still be angry at me, even though in middle school I got honor roll every single quarter, and she was still mad at me. And I couldn't do that anymore. The amount of effort it took to do that was exhausting, and I think I suffered from burnout going into high school from trying to achieve these grades, which for me was extremely hard, not because I am lacking intelligence, just because of the structure of the public school system, and then having to mask, and then coming home and dealing with my mother. It was extremely difficult. So high school, I was masking even harder because I had finally kind of made friends. I'm laughing. That's because that's something I do when I'm uncomfortable. It wasn't funny, of course, but the first time I tried to commit suicide, I was 16. My mother had already grounded me for months on end, and because of grades, I was a solid B student. I don't know what the deal is with the obsession. She was a teacher. I think it could have also been the fact that she needed to make sure that she was showcasing off that because she was a teacher for her other teacher friends, that she was doing a good job or something, instead of figuring it out what was going on with me. So I took a bunch of pills. She walked in. We went to the hospital. I now know, of course, I had gone through a autistic shutdown. I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk. So fast forward a week, I was getting a C in English. Mind you, I was severely depressed, had attempted suicide. My mother said to me, "I don't care that you're depressed. You need to be getting better than a C in English." Like I said, she was just obsessed with my grades and couldn't have cared less that I was suicidal. I attempted 2 more times later in life. Nobody knew. One was my senior year of high school. One was my freshman year of college, which I never should have gone to college. Not at that point in my life anyway. I took a ton of pills. All I did was vomit hardcore the next day. I had upped the ante the third time I tried, but my body was actually really used to taking a ton of like Motrin and ibuprofen kind of thing, because I also have an autoimmune disease, which at the time I didn't know. I just was in a lot of pain. So my mother just continued to berate me about anything and everything. The hitting had stopped when I was a kid, but just taking all her frustration out on me all the time. And she would infantize me. I'm not sure if I'm saying that word correct. I've only ever read it, but I remember 17, it was just me and her, and I was unloading the dishwasher, and she'd come home and say, "Good girl." Like, no, say thank you. Don't say good girl. Like, she would do these things that just made her then even more obnoxious to me. So I was suffering through this abuse of her, and then she would continue to treat me like this child. This is another form of her abuse. Is she would keep me codependent and then use independence, pushing me into independence as a punishment. This video is already getting long, so I'm not going to go into that. If you're watching and you have a similar situation, maybe you could understand. In my 20s, I moved away from home. Finally, we had continued to fight. I had a job, I was working, I was still depressed. I had just been diagnosed with ADHD as well, and I had to drop out of school, which I never should have gone to, but I had met my husband, who is my everything, and he lived in a different state, so I moved to be with him. Our relationship started to get better, probably because I was not seeing her as much and moved away. She would do this thing where she would guilt me, try to make me feel bad about not calling, like going, if just 1 week went by without calling her, she would say things about how I didn't, oh, you must not love me, or a whole week, like, you never think about me. I mean, come on. So I'm in this situation in my life now where I'm 35 and a small child, and she moved out here without me asking, but now that she is here, I am using her help because although I have a terrible relationship with her, I think she's being a pretty good grandmother to my child, and I need the help. So I can't just cut it out. I can't just cut her out. Over the course of the pandemic and learning that I'm autistic, I've also been learning out the narcissistic abuse, like I said. And so now I'm able to more keenly listen to the way she says things and how she says things. Apparently it's my job to take care of her emotional needs during this time of COVID, even though I'm having an extremely hard time and also having a kid and never getting time to myself. But no, it's my job to remember that how she's feeling and that she needs emotional support. She's constantly disrespecting my boundaries that I set, so I have to usually put her number on silent, because even though for the last 5 years I've asked her to stop contacting me so much, especially through text message, she will continue to do that anyway. There's times where when my husband and I first moved into our house and I was in my pajamas, it was the morning, she came to visit, we were outside in the front yard briefly, and there was a neighbor who stepped out and she said, "I'm gonna go introduce myself," and I said, "Please don't, I'm not in a situation where I feel comfortable introducing myself in my pajamas and I'm tired," and she just did it anyway, even though I asked her to stop, so I had to go inside. I feel like I'm not even conveying it the way I want. I feel like the way I'm talking about it doesn't actually sound that bad, but it's kind of nuanced, and you can only really pick up on it if you've been around it a lot, like I have, because I'm her daughter. When I first told my husband about things that I experienced, he couldn't really believe it, and he told me that he thought that it was probably in my head, and she, because I had said, I'm pretty sure she does things to purposely annoy me, and he said, I don't think so. There's no way that she's doing that. After about a year of her living where we live now, he said, yeah, I think you're right. I think she, for some reason, is purposely trying to annoy you all the time. So that's hard. And now that I'm autistic, not that now that I'm autistic, I've been autistic my whole life. Now that she knows, she is babying me more, even though I am saying, please stop. It's clear to me now that even though all these years she told me I was so stupid, that it is she who is the stupid one. Sorry, I'm just so pissed now talking about it even more. And again, I might have to take this down if she catches wind of this. All right, well, I do wonder if I had been diagnosed autistic as a child, if that would have changed anything. But a part of me thinks that she might have treated me even more like a child. There's no way to know, though. There's no way for me to know what her reaction would have been. I think maybe she wouldn't have hit me. Maybe she wouldn't have called me stupid all the time. But I don't really know. And also, when I think of ABA therapy that people who are autistic, I don't know why I keep saying it like that, who have said that it's been horrible, and I think about how if I had known or she had known, it's possible that she would have sent me to some kind of therapies that would have been even more harmful anyway. All I know is I'm on this life trajectory where I am living a good life despite the fact that I've had all these struggles and issues. I have an extremely supportive partner. I have my son, and we live in a house that we were able to afford back before the housing market bubble got too big for us to afford it, and I'm so freaking lucky. And it's possible that I wouldn't have any of those things if I had known, because I just don't know what she would have done. So thank you for listening. If you're autistic, you're either just finding out now if you're an adult, or maybe you've known. And if you had any struggles with a parent or anybody else in your life, I'm so sorry, because I know that it fucking hurts. And it's not something you can just easily get over. And would I like to go to therapy for it? Sure. But, I don't know if I could afford it, because that is expensive and not covered by health insurance. Thanks, government. Anyway, thank you for listening.